Hello, Professor.
Okay,
Good morning.
hello. Good morning.
Professor, did you post in the model next quiz or no?
Yes, I did. I'm we're a little late in getting that up because I'm traveling, but I did post for today we'll discuss chapter 7, and then for next week, I already posted next week's assignments. But I don't think I graded the ones that you submitted for today, so I regret doing that, but I'll have that done over the next few days. I'll be arriving home, I believe Monday, but I'll find some time and do the grading for the two chapters that we're due today. But I'll have that done. But at least next week's assignment I already posted.
Yeah, we keep on asking because we don't know sometimes if the model is working or no.
Well, everything will I mean, no reason that everyone should not do well. There's no reason not to if you're following, reading the book and any questions you may have. There's no reason anyone should not do well. We'll maybe catch up on everything for sure by next Wednesday, but I'll have the well, I'll give the answers. We'll begin with the answers to 5 and 6 today, uh, and then next week we'll go over 7, the answers to 7. Okay, let's see. Well, why not begin now? I mean, I don't know who might not be not be in attendance. Let's go over. I'll give you the answers to the multiple choice questions of chapter 5. Okay, if you're following, the questions of chapter 5 were the gravity that draws economic activity is called C, demand for access or proximity. Question 2, spatial or distance relationships that are important to land use are called, it's A, linkages. 3, cities have tended to grow where transportation modes intersect, that's A. 4, the economic base multiplier of a city tends to be greater if the city is A, larger. 5, the best example of a base economic activity would be E, multi-state regional sales office. 6, important supply factors affecting a city's growth or potential include all of the following except A, unemployment rate. 7, which statements are true about agglomeration economies? E, all of the above. 8, which of these influences will decrease the level of a bid rent curve at the center of the city? A, faster travel time. 9, in a system of bid rent curves, assuming that the households are identical, that would be A, households with the greatest number of commuting workers. 10, a large university is an example of what kind of economic phenomenon? C, industry economies of scale. In any exam, which I will set up in a few weeks, and then the final exam at the conclusion of the class, anything that I ask of you will be material that is relevant to not so much the study of real estate from an academic perspective, even though this is what the class is supposed to do, but also in the practical application or use of this material. To me, this is more important than sort of the academic way of looking at it. For example, the material today includes the subject of appraisals. Um, Realtors basically cannot do an appraisal, at least a significant one, which I'll get into when we discuss the chapter. Appraisals are done by appraisers who are licensed. So therefore, I wouldn't ask you anything in an exam about what an appraiser does, only because realtors don't do that. Um, I'll show you what realtors do in the area of valuation, of trying to estimate the value of a property, but we're not allowed to do appraisals. So therefore, while the chapter um, is relevant to the academic study of real estate, so that students of real estate know what an appraiser does and understands basically how they do their work. Um, it's not something that you would do in practice. If you were a realtor, if you were a property manager, if you were in development, um, uh, if you were building buildings, you kind of do more market research that we discussed last week than you would do appraisals. And also, appraisals, for the most part, are done on existing property. If someone wants to build a building or build some sort of residential property, they have an idea of how much they will charge for the units before they begin, because they've done their market research and they have an understanding of where they feel they have the most demand, whether it's high-end units or office space or lower-end rental units. So they kind of know that. There's no valuation involved in that area. So my point being, I wouldn't focus on those areas that you don't really apply your knowledge of real estate at the end of the class. And should you go into real estate as a realtor, um, you aren't asked to do this. So I will discuss it, of course, because it's part of the course and part of the chapter, but material that is not relevant to you as a practicing real estate person in either capacity as a realtor or a property manager, I won't test you on that. I don't feel it necessary to have you remember that material after everything is done. Let me go to chapter 6 and go over the multiple choice questions on 6. And then we can begin the material for today, which is chapter 7. Uh, Question 1, factors that affect housing include all except D, household unemployment. 2, the process of creating a market-defining story include all except D, what is the price? 3, the cycle of real estate research starts with creating a market-defining story, A. 4, the features of an office building that may be important to one is E, all of the above. 5, a strong assertion about the large amount of data available for real estate is C, irrelevant to a given analysis. 6, the approach to real estate market research advocated starts with E, the nature of the property. 7, a powerful tool for managing, manipulating data is D, geographic information systems. 8, a very sophisticated data-intensive statistical method is D, psychographic research. Some of these don't even really make sense to me, and I don't even think they're the right answers. But that's why I say I will assure you that the material you are tested on is material that you can take with you when you leave the class, and you won't forget. 9, causes of real estate cycles include D, A, and B, but not C. And 10, data used in market research cases are include all of the following except B, data on job location. Ahmed, hello, and D, data on job location from the National Transportation. Okay,
Hello,
are there
Professor.
any? Hello, Ahmed, how are you? Good morning. Good morning, Eastern Time. And happy Thanksgiving to
Good
those of
evening,
you that.
Kuwait time.
Good evening. Okay, good. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you celebrating the holiday. Kind of a funny holiday. All you do is sit around and eat, and uh, hopefully avoid arguments with your family and friends. But it's kind of hard to do that in today's environment. But the best thing you can hope for is that you walk away from a Thanksgiving activity not having lost your patience or been angry at anybody. But that's life. Okay, what can you do? Chapter 7, I'll put up the PowerPoint. Um, okay. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, good. Um, Let me give you begin with a kind of an overview. Chapter 7 has 2 themes. First part of it discusses appraisal, and the second part discusses how to value a property.
Yes, this is what I'm waiting.
Yeah, as I was saying moments ago, um, appraisers are people that are called upon to assess the value of a property. Now, who might want to know the value of a property? Well, in the case of residential real estate, in certain communities, not so much in Florida, interestingly, many of the areas in South Florida, for example, are places where retirees come, people who want to retire from work come to live out their retirement. And most of their transactions are in cash. So there is little valuation necessary if you are paying for a property in cash. We'll discuss where data is available, but you negotiate the value or the price the seller wishes to sell her property, and then you work from there. In the other 30% of the case, because most of those transactions, about 70% are cash transactions. In the other 30%, people need to finance that transaction. So they have to go to a bank and ask for a mortgage. A mortgage is money that is borrowed from the bank to purchase the property. Now, if you see a property and it the owner, this a sign outside, or the owner says, well, I want to sell for $300,000, uh, and you go to your bank and say, I'd like to purchase this property, but I can't do it without a mortgage. The bank will have an appraiser appraise the property to be sure that that home is in that $300,000 range, more or less. Just because a seller says, I want to sell for 300,000 doesn't mean that the home is worth 300,000. What you would like to sell a property for, and this happens all the time in real estate, doesn't mean that the property is worth that value. So before a mortgage is given to a potential buyer, a bank or whoever is doing the financing will ask an appraiser to give them an appraised value of that particular property. So mortgage companies do that as well. Commercial real estate, those that build buildings, that sort of thing, none of the money used to do that, to build that, comes from the builders. That money would come from the banks, and banks would also then request an appraisal of the value of that potential property and what they can sell it for, the units, and so on and so forth. Military people that buy property too are subjected to appraisals. They need appraisals to buy property through some of the government agencies, such as the Veterans Administration. So anyone who needs to buy property and has to go to an institution to obtain the financing, that institution will request an appraisal. Now, as I kind of hinted a few minutes ago, realtors don't do appraisals when asked by an institution. They cannot do that. The institution will request a licensed appraiser to give them a pretty precise value for that particular property. But realtors, yes, often do appraisals, but not for banks or not for institutions. But let's say for another real estate company, or somebody wants to buy a property and says to you as her agent, I'm not quite sure that property is worth what the seller is asking for. Can you do an appraisal for me? Now, as a realtor, you always say, sure. You don't want to say no to a reasonable request from a client, because the client, if you start saying, no, I can't do that, or I don't like this, well, the client will go and find another realtor. So can realtors do appraisals? Yes, but only in certain circumstances where you are not doing it for an institution. Not doing it for a government agency. Maybe a government agency, the VA, the local VA, Veterans Administration, asks the realtor to value the property that maybe a military person, retired military person, wants to purchase. So, in summary, realtors can do appraisals. In fact, we actually do it all the time, whether it's formal or informal. We are always trying to corroborate, to assess the value of a property. However, we are not allowed to do appraisals when that appraisal will be used to determine or to offer a government or institutional mortgage to a buyer. In practice, some realtors do go through the process of becoming an appraiser. Uh, Real estate is a business where you may go through long periods without having any transactions. but yet you have your own expenses to pay, your own mortgage or your own rent or car insurance, the children's educational fees, things like that. So I know many realtors that also are appraisers, also have, let's say, companies, maybe they do repair work. They're licensed repair people. They may also have a painting company, so they go in and do painting. Um, Whenever a property is purchased, the contract allows for an inspection, and which is your right as a buyer to take a look at the property from the perspective of a knowledgeable inspector to see if that property is in good condition, if there's anything there that the buyer should be aware of. Uh, and some realtors are, in fact, licensed inspectors. So they can get a call from someone who says, I'm interested in buying this property, but I'd like to have it inspected to make sure there aren't any problems that I cannot see, I don't know of. And so they go in and do an inspection. So again, the realtor can have a number of different occupations, if you wish, appraisal being one of them. But again, to do an appraisal for an institution, for a government agency where the money will be used and guaranteed by a government agency, only licensed appraisers can do that. Okay, so
How about excuse me, Professor?
yes,
Yeah, can can I do an agent even if I'm not certified? I'm a
uh,
realtor, but I'm not certified. If I buy a house, can I use my knowledge? Me by myself can go to the bank and
well,
do
in
the
order,
papers.
well, you have to be at least a licensed realtor, that you have passed the real estate exam in your state or your county, whatever. So if you have a real estate license, yes, you can do appraisals. But if let's say a bank receives a request to finance the purchase of a property, uh, you cannot say to the bank, yes, I'll do it for you, unless you are a licensed appraiser.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm thinking is to listen the payment of the agent. So I'm thinking if how if I can do it by myself because the bank
Well,
will do the appraisal.
well, that's the thing that let me also point out that, and I did mention this in the first time we met, that real estate is for the most part legislated and governed by the local community. The state that you live in, if you are in Canada or some other country, the rules may be a bit different. So what I'm saying is here in the US, realtors that work in real estate offices give estimates of value all the time. Because someone says, a client calls you and says, I'd like to buy a house and, I'm looking at this, or can you give me tell me what's available in this price range? And as we'll see, where you go to search for that information, and you look around and you come back to the client and you say, well, in this price range, these properties are available. So you do it actually all the time, but informally, because no one will send you to jail. No one will sue you. No one will request that you lose your license if that valuation of what you say is wrong. It's off by a little bit. But if a bank asks you um, to do an appraisal because someone came and wants to buy a property, they want to be sure that that property is worth what the seller wants to sell it for. Here in the US and in all of the states, you would have to be a licensed appraiser. Now, again, you have a friend at the bank who works at the mortgage company, and he says, rather than pay $250 to have an appraiser appraise a value. They may say to you as a friend or somebody they know that understands real estate principles, can you give me an evaluation? Uh, I guess you could do it, but the person who is asking would probably get into trouble if they took your appraisal and submitted it to the underwriter, submitted it to their boss, because if you're not a licensed appraiser, your appraisal doesn't have any value to it, any legality to it.
Yes, because some friends says I'm selling my house. A friend price they said,
Yeah,
so they can just give an amount.
right. Because if you're selling your home, uh, and you're not using a realtor, then it's a bit of a challenge to say, well, what is my house worth? And what we all do is use what's called comparable values. We look for homes in the community that you live in that have sold or at least are being sold. And we look at the values of those homes and try to compare those
Yeah,
homes,
yeah,
let's
that's
say,
what I'm.
with your home to have an idea. Now, a realtor has access to all of the computer databases and can give you perhaps a more accurate number as to what your house is likely to be worth. But again, if someone wants to buy your home and needs a mortgage and goes to a bank and says, "I'd like to buy this property," it's listed at 300,000. The bank, in all likelihood, will ask an appraiser to go to your home and appraise the home. Now, when they do an appraisal, an appraiser does not go inside your home and look and say, "Oh my goodness, this furniture is beautiful furniture. And look at some of these paintings and the appraisal is the structure of the home and the surrounding area. It has nothing to do with the value of your possessions. So uh, again, if you have beautiful furnishings, beautiful furniture, and whatever, they don't bother to. It doesn't affect their appraisal. What they will look at is the structure of the home, the amount of land. You may have a swimming pool, that sort of thing, and try to come up with a number that reflects the value of that home. Okay. Um,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead. You seem to still have some more questions.
Yeah, because they say the bank says if you give down payment for 30,000, no need to transfer to the house. But if you give 10,000 down payment, then you need to transfer to the house. They said what's for that?
What do you mean transfer to the house? What does that mean?
Yeah, because my friend is buying a house and she said
Yeah.
that I will just buy it for someone to rent. They said, but the bank says you can just give us 30,000 down payment, but if you cannot give 30,000 down payment and just only 10,000, you cannot let the house rent by somebody. It should be by yourself, they said.
Okay, I wouldn't know what the bank is saying, but let me add this to you because we have not discussed this. This is not yet when you borrow money from a bank, the bank lends you money. That is called a mortgage. The bank is
Yeah,
giving you a
mortgage, yes.
mortgage. Now, what is considered or called a conventional mortgage is that the bank gives you 80% of the value of the home and you put down the other 20%. So if you wanted to buy a home for $300,000 and you needed a mortgage, the bank would give you 80% of 300,000, which would be $240,000. You would then have to put up the other $60,000, which represents 20% of the home. So what I think the bank is saying to you is that if we will give you a conventional mortgage and we'll give you, let's say, if they're asking you for 20,000, like you said, uh, then maybe that home is $100,000. So they'll put down 80%, which would be $80,000, and is asking you to put down the difference of 20,000. But I wouldn't know for sure without more information what the bank's intention is. But that's called a conventional mortgage. The bank gives you 80% and the buyer puts down 20%. Now, in certain conditions or in certain situations, a bank may work with a client and put up more than 80%, maybe 90%. But as a consequence, you will be asked to pay a higher interest rate, or they'll ask you for additional fees, something like that. The banks are very good at making money through fees and uh, well, doing their work. They know very well how to make money. So they could ask for less money and they will put up more. But what it seems is that's what the bank is asking as a down payment if the person you are referring to is going to buy the property through a mortgage.
Yes, and what my point there is, why you need to stay in the house? We just want to buy the house, but we don't like to stay in the house.
You don't like to what with the house? You want to buy it, but you don't want to do what?
We'll not move to the house.
You don't want to move
We'll
to the
use that
house
as a business. We will
as
not
a
move
what?
into the house because we'll use it as a business for renters.
For renters, and you want to buy it. Okay, so you want to buy it as an investment property. That's what it seems like,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, but
Um, well, I'm not quite sure. Are you in Canada, Julie?
British Columbia, yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, British Columbia. Okay, well, again, the real estate rules and regulations are governed at the local level. I did mention earlier when we first began, there are a few laws. One of them regarding disclosure. You remember that you have to disclose everything you know about the home if you are the seller. But anything other than that, the banking regulations, the how the real estate, the realtors are governed, or what they're allowed to do is determined at the local level. Each of the 50 states in the US has their own real estate commission. Even within a state, things vary. Uh, that's just the way it is. Each of the areas then also uses a different contract. Uh, let's say I am a realtor licensed in Florida. I can do a transaction, let's say in if you know Florida, in Jacksonville, which is I'm in the southwest part of Florida. Jacksonville is in the northeast part of Florida. It's probably about an 8-hour drive if I were to drive up to Jacksonville. I can do a transaction there, but I won't know their contracts. I'd have to perhaps ask a local realtor to help me out if somebody that I knew down here wanted to buy in Jacksonville, because their contracts are different. Of course, they're similar, but the rules over there would be different, and I wouldn't know that. The same way in reverse, somebody in Jacksonville calls and says, I have a client that lives in Jacksonville and wants to move down to South Florida. Can you help me out? Oh, yeah, sure, I can help you out. So again, I'm not quite sure exactly why, if it's being used, if you'd like to make an investment for as an investment property, uh, in many cases, the banks have different rules. So I think that's, Judy Lynn, that's what I think the issue is, that the bank will ask you, is this your primary residence? Are you going to live here as your primary residence? Is this going to be a secondary residence, a second home, or is this going to be an investment property? So I think that's what the issue is, that the bank is trying to uh, is applying different rules because they know you have admitted, but you should always be truthful, that this property is being used as a second, as an investment property.
Oh yeah, yeah, maybe yes, maybe.
But are you using a local realtor to help you, or you're just kind of doing it on your own?
No, because it's our friend
Yeah,
who is moving away, and I want to sell this house like this. But for us, we have our own house, so we want to buy with my friends and use if someone will rent. But we don't
yeah,
want to declare as a business because you need you know that you need
yeah.
to pay some extra taxes for business.
You can the laws of real estate, no matter where they are, allow an individual to sell or to buy property on their own without a realtor. You can do that. You don't have to use a realtor. Uh, and in fact, it's a situation that all of us encounter along the way on many occasions. So, what we like to say as realtors is that because we understand the real estate laws in the community, because we have access to far more information than the person working alone or wishing to sell their home by themselves, uh, we can provide you better protection so that you don't make a mistake. There isn't uh, something done that you will regret the purchase. For example, somebody drives by and sees a sign for sale, and they go in and they see the home and they say, "Oh yeah, this is a nice home. Okay, I'd like to buy the home." So the seller says, "Okay, this is it. Give me the money, and we have a deal." So the buyer says, "Okay, well."
Uh-oh, he's gone. Hello.
Hello,
Hello, we can see you
we
now.
back. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Can you remember the last thing I said? Because if uh,
I think, wait a minute.
So you didn't know, Professor, that you are cut off. You just keep on talking.
okay, can you hear what I'm saying? You can hear me now, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Um, okay, guys, I'm sorry about that. I don't know exactly what happened. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint and hear me?
No
We can see
PowerPoint.
the PowerPoint.
And you can hear me. Okay, very
Yeah,
well.
we can hear
Oh,
and see you now. Yeah.
all right. This is where I was last addressing the concept of market value. The concept of market value is the value that a seller believes that property is worth. The same thing if you were selling a car or selling a piece of furniture. What you believe it's worth is considered the market value. Very often, people have different views of what a market value is, especially when you are considering the purchase of real estate. And the cost of real estate is so expensive, thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in more affluent communities. So what a realtor has to learn how to do is to educate the buyer and the seller as to what the market value is and what is the more likely,
I'm
let's
sorry.
go to the third
I'm sorry,
one,
but
transact. Huh?
you still didn't share the PowerPoint.
Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, can you see the okay.
No, you still didn't share.
Yeah, I have share on it. Okay, it's
Did you
funny, it
click
says
on the what?
okay, I'm actually seeing a little thing that says you're muted, but you can't hear me, so I'm not really quite sure why oh how'd that come up? Okay, can you see that? Is that can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, do you see a PowerPoint and you see me talking? Which of those two is preferred?
Yeah, I can see it. It's the value concepts. Yeah.
Okay, do you see me talking and in this slide?
Yeah, I see you.
Okay, then I'll try to get out of the, or I'll leave them both. I don't know, I'm hesitant to start doing these and then we kind of get lost. Uh, okay, so, well, you don't need to really to see me. Let me put this in. Can you see this now, the PowerPoint?
Yeah, we can see the PowerPoint, but we can see you too.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah,
let's
and you're
get,
covering and you're blocking the
okay,
PowerPoint.
okay. You can see the PowerPoint.
Yes, but you are blocking also the PowerPoint.
I'm what?
Blocking.
Blacking it?
Yeah. I don't know what did you do to that. How did you do to your camera?
Okay, well, my camera it looks to be it's okay.
You can stop sharing and then share again. Stop sharing.
Okay, yeah, well, it shows it's sharing. Share this document.
I know it's sharing, but you're blocking it.
Um, yeah.
Or is it in my side?
I'm not quite sure. I believe it's sharing because there's a little thing is right, and actually I want to stop sharing, so I believe it's, but you can see the PowerPoint.
Yes, but you are blocking on the PowerPoint.
Okay, I'm out on the, well, let's go, at least you can see the PowerPoint. That's most important. Let's go through that because um, let's see, let me see. Is this preferred, this view?
We cannot read the PowerPoint. Some parts of the PowerPoint we cannot read
It's
because
just
you are
one here.
blocking it.
Okay, so let's go to the let's go to this one. Okay. Right. So the market value is what the person believes the property is worth. Um, it may require that the realtor explains to the buyer that this is not what the price is worth based on comparable values, but that's the nature of people always trying to get the most out.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Dr. Jerry. You
Yeah.
can see the stop sharing PowerPoint. There is a stop sharing like at the end of the window.
Okay. I'm sorry. I can't hear. I didn't hear the last part.
Stop sharing. You can see it.
Okay. See the PowerPoint. Can I see it?
The stop sharing. There's
Yeah.
stop
Stop
sharing.
sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to stop sharing it, you're saying?
Stop, yeah, stop sharing and start sharing again so we can
Okay.
see the PowerPoint. Start sharing again the entire window. I'm sorry.
Can you see it? Is there any change?
No, we can see it now.
You can?
No, did you share?
Yes, it says, it shows it's sharing.
No, it's not shared. It's not shared yet. Share the entire screen. Share and then choose the entire screen.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. Yikes. Mm.
Yeah, it's shared now.
Oh, you see that now?
Yeah, we can see that now.
Okay, you see the presentation or you see the, can you see
Yeah,
this?
now we can see it.
Boy, I
We
don't know what
can.
was done differently. Just got to move back and forth, but all right.
Okay,
Thank
now
you,
it's totally
Professor.
fine. Yeah,
Let,
thank
let,
you.
okay. But this is really strange. Okay. All right, let's continue then. Um, okay, we have the market value. We have the, what's it gonna be? Okay, is that better? Hello? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Okay, we'll leave it like that. Okay. Um, okay, so yes, the market value, the investment, investment value, and the transaction. The transaction is the price that eventually the property will sell. Okay, who uses appraisals, buyers, sellers, anybody that needs to have an estimate? This is something that I did mention. The courts, let's say somebody gets divorced and they want to sell the property. Um, Husband and wife will divide the property into two, so they want an estimate as to what the property is worth. Uh, Bankruptcy, people pass away, things like that. Okay. It does get into a bit of estimating the value of stock, but I mean, why we're not really talking about stock. We have nothing to do with that. Property is unique. Every property is unique. Oh, let me say something too, that in Moodle you should have the PowerPoint presentation. So if you want to review them after class, it should be there. I'm trying to think if I put 7 up because of okay, well, at least the other ones are up. You can always send me a text and I'll check to make sure it's up. But all of these are also uploaded to Moodle, so you should have these. You can review them. Um, what the subject property is simply the property that's being appraised. So when someone says appraisal, well, you're appraising the subject property. That's the value. That's the home that the bank wants to know what is it worth. Okay, this again, the appraisal organizations, all states and federal agencies Uh, okay, I want to ask you this again. This appears on the real estate exam if you want to become a realtor in Florida, and I'm sure most states you would have to know this, but as far as we're concerned, I don't consider it to be important. Um, this would be the process that an appraiser would go through. Exhibit 7.1 in the book. Um, Again, I don't consider it to be irrelevant, but being that we're not taking a course in how to become an appraiser, uh, this is simply for your informational uh, purposes. Step 3 and 4, just in passing, would be related to the market research discussion we had last week. Um, in order to appraise a property, whether you're doing it formally as an appraiser or whether you're doing it somewhat informally as a realtor, you're really using market data. So you should have some knowledge of market research, of, uh, of market trends. Um, to give you an example, I entered real estate as an agent in 2006. I worked for a real estate company that was in a tourist location. And over the next few years, people would walk in off the street and just ask questions, and we would approach them if they were standing outside the door looking at, if you've ever seen a real estate office, very often they have the listings, the properties they are selling. A copy of a photo of the property is taped to the window, and if you work in an office environment like that, when you see somebody coming up to the window and looking at a property and maybe even mentioning it to their husband or wife, you would go out and say, "Oh, hi, I'm Jerry. Can I help you? You're interested in anything?" That sort of thing. Realtors working in that type of environment, we knew about 2 years later, 2008 or 9, that people were becoming very hesitant to purchase real estate. They would say, I really like it, but I don't know, for some reason, I'm not really quite sure if this is the right moment. And we would say, well, what seems to be the issue here? This is a beautiful home. You're looking at it, we can go see it, that sort of thing. As it would be that realtors dealing with people every day were the first to realize that the economy was entering into a very soft period. Within a year or two, economists working at banks and government institutions announced that we were officially in a recession. But realtors knew before the economists knew, just by talking to people. Uh, in research, that would be called behavioral information, the more formal word, psychographic information. We were to assess, of course, as a realtor, the person's interest, that they have, what do they want to pay, that sort of thing, maybe, financial information, but you also wanted to know what they were thinking. And we were the first to know that something was happening, that the market was going from a more positive outlook to a more, I'm not really quite sure. So that's the nature of just doing research, of being able to understand the market, what's people going on, and the sooner you can determine that, the better you can serve your clients. For example, if you represent a seller, and that seller wants to sell their property for 300,000. Oh, I know it's worth 300,000. My neighbors sold at 300,000. Okay, it's where you feel it's worth 300,000. But the mood in the economy, investors are feeling that the market is going to trend downward. My recommendation to you as my client is to lower your price to, let's say, 275,000. If the seller accepts your recommendation, you may be able to get that transaction done before the market actually begins to go down. Or in reverse, the person says, well, I think I could sell mine for 300,000. I'm happy with it. And you as the realtor would say, all signs indicate that the real estate market is strengthening. It's getting better. If you are not in a rush to sell, well, let's wait to see, maybe we can get 325,000 for your property. Well, let's change the price and put 325. If you're not in a rush, let's see what happens for 30 days. And therefore you can get more money for your client. But a realtor's ability to understand market research and understand the nature of the market and how it's moving, it goes up, it goes down. As I mentioned to you, our condo, dropped within about 3 years after purchasing it. We moved down in 2005. By 2008, it was worth half the price. That was quite a bit of money for us. As a teacher, a college teacher, losing half the value of your home is quite a shock. But we had no plans on moving. We weren't going to do anything, so we just waited out. Now, 15 years later, it's even worth more than we paid for it. So, understanding trends is really it's very important. Realtors cannot simply look at numbers. They have to sort of go into the community and feel what people are feeling themselves. Okay, the next concept I'd like to discuss for a second is okay, we'll leave this for the appraisal process. We don't really need to get into that information that's collected. Okay, the highest and best use is the concept used in appraisal. It's the best. If you're appraising property, you want to look at what is the best use for this property. If I was appraising a particular property and I would say, well, looking at this structure, it can make more money if we put a grocery store, a small grocery store, than if it was used as a gas station. So when a realtor addresses the value of a particular property, he or she is looking for what is called the highest and best use of a property. What can that property be used for to generate the highest income of that property? Okay, determine the land. Okay, that's really about it regarding appraisers, and I wouldn't want to elaborate more on that simply because it's not an area that realtors go into. It's important to know what an appraiser does, how to become an appraiser in the event that you might like to do that. I did say in the beginning when we first met something like, if you want to work in real estate, you could be a realtor, you could be a property manager, you can work in the development projects, you can work in a company that builds commercial buildings, or you can work for a company that develops residential properties. You could do that as well. I omitted, I didn't occur to me at the moment, that you could also become an appraiser. And that is, of course, part of the real estate family of occupations. And but again, now appearing in chapter 7, I should point that out. You could also become a realtor, become an appraiser. And as I said just before, very often realtors wear two hats simply because they're not quite sure when their next transaction will occur. So they will take the course to become an appraiser, learn how to appraise. They also could become, as I mentioned, get licensed to do repair work, plumbers, electricians. and hope to get some work in those areas. That is the nature of real estate. That is why uh, many new agents leave the business after, let's say, maybe 1 year. You leave a position in which you're getting a fixed salary. Every 2 weeks you get a check, every month you get a check, whatever it might be. Leave that to go into real estate, and then you have no income. You're sitting around waiting for some transactions to come in, and to your misfortune, you enter the market at a time when it's quite soft, as it is now, and you can go months without earning an income. And what do? You have expenses to be paid. Okay, let's turn now uh, to the main focus of the chapter, which is how to value homes, but not in a formal way, not in a way that we are presenting a number to a bank, only that we are working with our clients. And when you work with your clients to provide an estimate of the value of a home, you do not need to be a licensed appraiser, but you have to understand that appraising the value of a property is part of what a realtor does. Okay, your client wants to know what is the best value I can obtain this property for. You have to be able to explain to a client what is the difference between a market value, the investment value, the transactional value. Um, the biggest challenge I guess we all face as realtors, that sellers believe they can get more for their property than the market is willing to pay for it. Some people have properties. Imagine having a home and entering your senior years, and your children have all left the home, and you want to sell your home and move to Florida or Arizona, someplace where it's nice and warm. That home is an extension of your family. It's not simply a structure of cement and wood. It has, like, it's part of the family. It has like spiritual value to you. And dealing with people that are very determined or very assured that their value of the home is whatever it is, it's very difficult to deal with. So real estate is a challenging position, but yet is a very affluent position, and you could do very well. There are three ways to approach the valuation of a property. The one that's most often used in real estate as a realtor is a sales comparison approach. The next is cost approach and income approach. The sales comparison approach, as a realtor, you attempt to find properties that have similar value to the one that the client wants to buy or the one that the client wishes to sell. But really, the only way to say what is something worth is to look to see what was sold previously. Or you believe your home is worth this, but right down the block, they're building new homes. You believe your home is worth 400,000, but right down the road, they're building new homes for $350,000. Why would a buyer prefer a home that's 10 or 15 years old and through what I say, pay 400,000 when new homes with everything new being built for 350,000? What is now the value of your home? Well, you may think it's worth 400,000, but what do you think you're likely to get for it? Okay, the cost approach would be the way to value the cost of building a home, of making a new one, of working from scratch. Okay, that is in a way less technical Uh, or like if you were going to build a home, the cost approach would be, well, how much does the cement cost? How much does the wood cost? How much does the land cost? How much does the everything cost? And take a calculator and add everything up, and that's the cost approach. It's really like more direct. Whereas the sales comparison approach asks you to look at comparable values of homes that have sold, homes that are on the market to be sold. So it's a little bit more like which homes, no two homes are actually the same. In most cases, that's true. Here in Florida, we have these communities where homes actually are the same, one next to the other. But in many areas, in most areas, homes are not built in these type of retirement communities where they all look the same. In most places, I guess, throughout the whatever country, unless it's again in a planned community, all homes are different. So the challenge is to look for a home that is similar to the one that's being sold, which might be almost impossible if a home is a few years old and has been modified, things have been added, that sort of thing. That's what's challenging about the sales company. The cost approach is really straightforward. Okay, you want me to build this home on this lot. Okay, this is the floor plan. And how much would it cost to build this home? Okay, well, let's take out your calculator. This is how much wood you would need. This is how much cement you would need. This is how much you would need for plumbing and so on and so forth. The income approach is also a bit challenging. It's an approach in which you are determining the income value, the income generated from a particular investment property. That's what you, Judy Lynn, was apparently the situation you're addressing is what is a property worth as an investment property, as a property in which I can rent out. Okay, a person may consider buying a home. Let's say it has 2 floors, and someone says, you know, I can remodel the home where I can make 2 apartments, 2 separate apartments from these 3 homes. From this home, I can separate the top and I can separate the bottom. And I could just take a staircase and put it, let's say, to the side of the home, outside of it. Take away the one that's inside that would lead from the first floor to the second floor, which usually is where the bedrooms would be in a home like that. Take away the staircase, put something outside that for the person living on the second floor, they can access the second floor without going through the first floor. But how much money can I make if I were to do that? Or if I were to buy a business, how much money does that business generate over time? Because the value of an income producing property is not only the value of the structure and the value of the land. That's easy to estimate. The added element is the income that would be generated from the business over time. This home on this property is worth 300,000. But because it's a grocery store, it's a restaurant, it generates in profit $50,000 a year. What is the value of that property? Well, it's 300,000 for the property, for the structure and the land, but it leaves the owner $50,000 in income each year. So, well, one year it's 350, 2 years becomes 400,000, 3 years becomes 450. So that's the challenge in using the income approach. The income approach for properties in which people want to buy for investment purposes. Now, the appraiser would use all three when appraising if and only if the property would be used as an investment. if a property was used as an investment, as I'm saying, the appraiser still has to determine the value of the structure and the land, because that's what has to be paid. Because it's being used as an investment doesn't mean that the structure and the value of the land changes. It's the same value. It's a $300,000 property. However, because it generates income, I have to factor in the value of future income. Now, if it's not being rebuilt, then the cost approach really isn't considered, unless you're buying a business that's for investment purposes. But in the example of taking a two-story single-family home and dividing it into two apartments, then there's a cost of remodeling. So if you were to do that, then all three methods would be involved in the appraisal of that property. Okay, this would be the type of reports, whatever. Pass on that. Uh, this is similar to the process we saw earlier for the appraiser, because it's pretty much doing the same thing. That's all is the same thing. The same approach is needed, but the investment aspect of a property becomes a bit of a challenge. So you see in step 6, apply the 3 approaches and then kind of add them all together. The sales approach would give you the value of the land and the property, the land and the structure. The cost approach would add the cost of any changes to the property, any remodeling of the property. And then the income approach would be the amount of money added to the value of the property because it generates income. Uh, the first approach is, and then that they go into more detail to discuss, is the sales approach. In using the sales approach, what I'm saying, what I have said, is that this is the basic approach used by realtors in a sale of or purchase of residential homes. Someone wants to know what the value is, knowing that the economy fluctuates. Imagine a cycle, a roller coaster, something that goes up and something that goes down. What is the value of that property now? Not what is that property yesterday, or what is that value tomorrow? Unless it's an income producing property. But if it's a home, a family home, the only way to assess the value is to try to compare it to something that is similar. When a home is so different, it becomes a very challenging assignment. This is why it is generally assumed or generally recommended that if a person buys a property in a community of very similar homes, okay, this is a planned community. Remember, we saw the word PUD, a planned urban community, in which the homes right next to each other are the same. If someone decides to do something very different, it's one story home, so they want to put a second story, or the homes do not have swimming pools, but they want to add a swimming pool, they want to change it. It's very hard to assess the value of the remodeled home. It's often the same thing when people sell cars that have really been changed a bit. The owner of the car is a pretty much a car. I don't know what the right word is, fanatic type. You know, they put in the very expensive speakers, very expensive this, very expensive that, to a basic model, then attempt to sell the car. The buyer says, you can take it with you. Why should I pay much more than a comparable model should sell for? So it's kind of similar in real estate. If you wish to be the most expensive or different home in a community, very often you don't get the money back that you put into remodeling it. The best recommendation, if you really have a unique vision for the home that you want to live in, is to do not buy that home in one of these planned communities, which each home is the same. Go someplace, buy a property, and then build whatever it is you like. It doesn't change the difficulty in trying to assess the value at some point if you want to sell it. But if you're going to the extent of making a home very unique, it might be unlikely you're going to sell it, unless, of course, the person runs into what we saw in the earlier slide, a divorce, the person passes away, and the inheritors, the person who inherits the property, intends to sell it, then trying to assess the value becomes a bit of a challenge. Because the same way that a buyer, when a buyer wants to buy a property, he or she wants to say or ask the realtor, what is the value of similar properties? I mean, why should I pay this amount? Tell me or show me properties that are similar so I can see, okay, this is why this value, the property is selling for this, because others are very similar to it. Okay, that I understand. When you have something truly unique, it's very hard to determine its value. But that's the way it is. Okay. In a competitive market, close substitutes should sell for similar prices. That's the concept. You would look as a realtor at properties that have been sold to see what values they sold at, what properties are on the market as what's called listed properties, properties being listed for sale. What are they being listed at? And then try to work out the best price for your buyer or seller. Okay, let's move down because we're getting to a point that okay, properties again, buyers and sellers would look at substitutes, products that are uh, prices, homes that are similar. You may see the word arm's length transactions. An arm's length transaction is a concept used simply for the transactions of homes under normal conditions. It's not being given to you as a gift, for example. When two people negotiate the price of a home, of a property, it's simply called an arm's length transaction. Arms, again, from the arm and the length, meaning you and the buyer and the seller are just close to each other at arm's length, and you're discussing the value of a particular property. It's done between two parties that are in negotiation, as opposed to property being given to you as a gift, for example. Where would you find information as a realtor? Um, where would you get information to try to identify similar properties? Most realtors will use what is called the multiple listing service, the MLS. The multiple listing service is a database that each of the real estate boards, locations, maintains. For example, in my area, uh, the board that sort of supervises my area is called the Southwest Florida Board of Realtors. Every property that is sold through a realtor is uploaded to this database. So a realtor that is registered in this board, as most of us are, you don't have to be registered with the board. If you get your license, you may say, well, I don't want to pay the extra fee. But then somebody who knows the business will say, well, how are you going to find properties that are available for sale? How are you going to do we say comps, your comparable values? I'll do it on my own. That's really very silly. So those of us that are realtors within a specific location, as soon as we get our license, we join the real estate board. And that board allows us to access the properties that are being offered for sale, the properties that have been sold recently, even going back years. And we use that as the primary uh, source of information. Now, anyone who buys a property, who owns a property, that property will also be listed in the county. Again, in locations where some of you are that don't use counties, that may use some other designation, districts, uh, municipalities, whatever it might be, every homeowner, their name and the property will appear in the public records. If I want to know, for example, someone says to me, I like a property here. I'm curious to know what is the property tax that you would have to pay for this home. Now, in our multiple listing service, that information is actually included when you look for a specific property. But let's say in others that it isn't listed, then I would go into the public records and look for the property tax information. How much tax did the owner pay last year for that property? Okay. Private vendors, title companies. There are some companies called Realtor.com. You may have heard of them. Zillow.com. These are private companies that purchase from the different MLS systems the information. So if you are not a realtor, let's say you're simply an individual, not a realtor, and wanted to have an idea of what values, what homes are selling for in a community, you can log on to realtor.com or Zillow.com. There are a few of them. The only difference between those databases and the actual MLS systems that serve a particular community is that the MLS is more accurate and up to date. Once a price is changed, once something changes in the conditions of a home, it appears first in the MLS system. All realtors, agents, have access to the MLS system. They're paying for it. So let's say they lower the price of their home from 300,000 to 275,000. The realtor would enter that price change in their MLS system, and it would appear immediately for anyone that's looking for that for information. However, for those other databases, it might take a day or two for them to pick up on the changes. So sometimes the data in those on those companies is not accurate. But many people use them, and it is a source of information. But the most accurate source of information about a property would be to access the multiple listing service that serves that particular community. What he's saying here, sequence of adjustments. Let's say we are trying to determine the value of a home. Someone wants to sell a home for 300,000, and the home next door sold recently, and it's very similar. So that would be a good comparable value to use in pricing my client's property. However, my neighbor has a swimming pool, and I don't have a swimming pool. Is my home worth the same as my neighbor's? Well, of course not. Therefore, in determining the value of your home, the subject home, your client, you would have to say, what is the cost of putting in a swimming pool? Therefore, your home should be worth, let's say, 25,000 less than the neighbor's home that sold last month because he has a swimming pool. That is called an adjustment. So appraisers doing formal appraisals would have to understand that they have to make an adjustment for the value of the subject's home. So whether you're an official appraiser or a realtor trying to explain to a client why a home should be worth more or less, you always have to make adjustments. Those adjustments are simply calculating the value, what it means to have, let's say, a swimming pool, and why a swimming pool may be, 25, or depending on the size of the swimming pool, $50,000 more than another home. Some homes have half bathrooms. What is a half bathroom? Well, let's say, what's a full bathroom? A full bathroom is a bathroom that has both the shower that you could bathe and a toilet. If you are a person and you wish to buy a home or a condo and you enjoy entertaining, a half bathroom is very important to you. Why? Because if you have guests and you are in the living room area and someone needs to go to the bathroom, then they would have to go close by or through one of the bedrooms, well, both bedrooms, to get to the bathroom. Uh, Sometimes I don't like people walking through my bedroom to go to my bathroom. Sometimes there might be, you might have left some jewelry there or something of value, and you have people that you are entertaining that are friends, you don't know who they are, and have people walking through your bedroom may not be very comfortable for you. So some people enjoy a half bathroom. What is a half bathroom? It's a bathroom with only a sink and a toilet, no shower, usually located right near the main area of the house. So if you like to entertain quite a bit, you might look for a home with a half bathroom. Therefore, that the person or people that are in the living room area, the family room, and someone says, I have to go to the bathroom, okay, it's right over here. The person does not have to go to your bathroom. So if you are making a valuation determination between a home that has bedrooms, two baths, three bedrooms, and two and a half bathrooms, well, the one with two and a half might be worth more, but it's not simply the cost of putting in a half bathroom, which is usually, of course, a very small area because it doesn't have a shower, just a sink and a toilet. But the value of that is really worth much more than the cost of putting that in. Why is that? Because it prevents you from saying, okay, you have to go through my bedroom to get to my bathroom. And I don't like people who walk in and see my kind of personal things around. So that's what makes, of course, all of this very difficult. But the concept of adjusting, of trying to say what is the value of this. Now, maybe your house has the pool, and the neighbor who just sold did not have the pool. So then you would say, well, what is the pool worth? My neighbor sold for 300,000, and now I already have a pool that's working fine. So I think buying should be 350,000. Well, okay. But then the buyer says, but it only costs $25,000 to put in a pool because I already checked. So that's, again, another area, which is the negotiation area. But the concept of adjustments is asking whether the appraiser or the agent that's trying to determine the value to make two properties similar when they have different properties, different characters. Okay, this is simply trying to show what a property might be worth, sold at different times, uh, and what the value might be today. Because another example that I didn't mention, but I see it now, let's say C, is that a property, the only comparable values available for comparison might be something that was sold a few years ago. There's some communities which are not very large, maybe a few homes, 10 homes were built, that's all. But there hasn't been a sale for years. So that makes it a bit of a challenge. These homes are the same. Someone wants to sell today, but the last recorded sale was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. What would be the value of that home today? And that's what this exhibit 7.4 is attempting to show. Let's say the date A would be 12 months ago at 191. It should be worth today 197. Property B sold 18 months ago for 158, so it should be worth about 167 today. And property C sold 2 years ago at 148.9 and should be worth 162. And according to the appraiser or the realtor trying to do this, then the average, again, monthly increase was 0.30. Okay, some federal agencies that might be helpful in assessing the value of homes, Freddie Mac, Federal Housing Agency. But in most cases, a realtor in his or her everyday activities do not really rely on these agencies. You want more specific information, more current, more related to your location. Okay, why would you adjust? Why is it necessary to adjust? Well, maybe a home is located in one area and a similar one, but it's located a few streets over. And each location might be different. One home, two homes are very much the same, but one is closer to a school and another is 5 or 6 streets away from the school. Well, someone may say, I don't want to be near a school. I don't want to be near a whole bunch of kids that are coming in and going out twice a day, making a lot of noise. I prefer to be away from it. So being close to the school might be considered a negative factor. Someone else, a young family moving in with small kids, saying, hey, I find this to be a very positive factor because I know my kids will be going to this school and it's just a street away, 2 streets away. Um, Okay, economic characteristics does not apply to residences, but as I mentioned, that the value of our home went down and now it's up. So even economic characteristics, inflation, recession, things like that, interest rates. The market is soft right now because mortgage rates have gone up to almost 8%. They're now coming down a bit, but people may not want to buy and have to pay a high interest rate, so they might wait. Okay, personal property is really not included in the sale of a property in most cases. Sometimes a person who is selling a home will sell the home with the furniture there to try to get more money for the sale of the home. And why would the person sell the furniture? Because the furniture perhaps is old. The person is moving into a newer home and wants to buy everything new, which often happens. Homes are sold under different conditions. Unfurnished, meaning that the buyer is getting a home with no furniture. The seller is not leaving anything. Furnished means that the home has furniture, which is sometimes very attractive for somebody who's buying a second home. They have their home up north and they want to buy a vacation home, a seasonal home. But why bother buying furniture if they're only going to be in Florida for 3 months or maybe 6 months a year? So they would prefer a home that has furniture, even if it's a bit outdated. They don't care too much. If you want to rent your home, in most cases, you want to rent a home with furniture. So if a person bought a home and wanted to rent it and generate income, then that should have furniture because the rent is not going to come down for a few months and buy furniture, leave it to the owner, then go back up north. Personal property, your personal possessions. Okay, as I said, furniture is usually included. Personal possessions. If you were to move, you would take your stereo, you take your photos, you take a lot of your personal possessions. Remember, we talked about uh, 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 personal property, fixed property, things like that. There is also a term that's used that's called turnkey. Like you turn a key, it's a term that comes from construction. And what turnkey means is that the buyer doesn't have to walk in with anything, take over with anything. Dishes are there, towels are there, sheets are there, everything is there. The only thing the buyer has to walk in with is his toothpaste, his toothbrush. And that's called turnkey. Sometimes you see that as well. Okay, this once again is attempting to demonstrate how homes uh, have to be adjusted for changes in the home. Okay, they're talking about swimming pool. Uh, the pool has a home as being compared to another home that doesn't have a swimming pool. So uh, the appraiser is considering or valuing that as a $15,000 additional cost. Okay, this is looking at this from the perspective of an appraiser who's preparing a formal document. For us in real estate, when we try to justify to a buyer or a seller, we don't need to do this. You simply say, well, why is that one more expensive? It's got a swimming pool. Why is that, a better buy? Because it has a half bathroom. So in real estate, you don't really need to go into the detail, but this would be a view of what an appraiser might be doing in preparing a formal appraisal. Okay, I wouldn't ask you to do this. This again is not part of a real, is another example, okay? This is, again, how an appraiser would adjust the value of a property. But in real estate, we don't do this. And as I'm saying, I wouldn't overemphasize the work of an appraiser simply because um, this is not a course in appraisal. See, what he's attempting to show here is, you see over here, uh, the property rights conveyed plus or minus to the value of the home. If it's being financed, it adds or subtracts from the value, adjustments for sale, all these things. Okay, according to the board, the appraisal board, this is essentially what they're doing, making adjustments to existing home. Okay. The location could be a plus or minus, the physical, the economic, the use, all of that. Okay, the more um, important areas for us is to understand the different approaches that are used to evaluate. I'm not going to again elaborate on this and spend time on it to get to a. We don't do this. If you have any interest in following through on it because you might be interested in becoming an appraiser or just curious how this works, then we can always discuss it. Uh, what an appraiser could do, here's a specific example, using this is comparable sale. This is a home that was sold, one home, the second home, third home. This was the adjusted price. He added a weight to it, uh, and came up with an average price in this community of 167.9. Okay, this would be the sort of approach used in the cost approach, estimating the reproduction value minus the depreciated value. Let me just tell you, move up where we are. Okay. Okay, this is jumping to page 179 of the text, the cost approach. Okay, there's a difference between reproduction and replacement. The reproduction, the concept of reproduction means the cost of building something exactly as the way it was done originally. Attempting to use the materials, the exact nature of the home when it was originally built. That's called the reproduction. What's called reproduction. The concept of replacement is the cost of making that house today. This is like the difference in used in insurance. If let's say, for that matter, in car insurance, if a 10-year-old car is damaged severely by an accident, the insurance company doesn't give you the value of a new car today. If a 10-year-old car, whatever it is, a Toyota, is now 10 years old and worth $2,000 in today's market, they give you the cost of what it's worth today. They're not going to give you the cost. You had a nice Toyota. Okay, here's a check for a new one. Buy a new one. The replacement cost will be the cost of building a new one today. I'm talking about housing again. Okay, see, we're actually reaching. Here we go. Replacement cost of creating something of equal utility then and the cost of an exact replica today. Okay, that's the only thing really with the cost approach, because all it is measuring the structure, trying to establish the cost, and coming up with a sum total. So that's a fairly easy one. We really don't even really need to get into that one. Okay, this type of thing we'll pick up next week. Physical deterioration, functional obsolescence. Okay, houses depreciate for different reasons. Let me just go through this quickly. Now, physical deterioration means that a house that's like 30 or 40 years old is going to show a lot of wear and tear. Functional obsolescence is a concept that means that the house is not up to the standards of today. The way they were built 30 or 40 years ago is not the way houses are built today. So some aspects of the house may be simply functionally obsolete. They don't do that today. The concept of external obsolescence means that something in the area makes that home obsolete. It's simply not done in this way any longer. People don't make homes that way. They don't do homes in that form today. They do it differently. That's the same thing in everything, computing or cell phone. Imagine a cell phone, 10 years ago, 20 years ago when they first came out, 20 years, actually more than that. The first cell phones were like military phones. Like that you saw in, let's say, the old army movies, they had it is sort of like that. They had the phone attached to a very big battery, and they compare phones today, how tiny they are. That would be not functionally obsolescent, they work the same way, but externally obsolete, that they don't make them like that anymore. Okay, I am going through the last, there it is, okay. Loss in market value due to age, functional taste and preferences, and external is simply they don't make them that way, or the house is now, years ago there was no traffic, and now so many people go by, they build schools, whatever, and making the house, the value of the house a bit different. Okay, this you won't be able to see. This would be the report that the appraiser submits to the bank, the uniform residential. This is what they look like. Okay. We will say good afternoon. Most of you seem to be in the afternoon, except for those out in British Columbia, where it's still good morning. Okay, this was 7. I left you the assignment for the multiple choice questions. We'll go over them next week, and I assure you I'll have everything graded by the next time we meet. Are there any questions before we leave? Any questions?
Nothing in my side, Professor.
Nothing. Remember also to, if you have any questions, text me. If the question is somewhat lengthy or something, just tell me that you have emailed me through the Windsor email system, and that way I can provide a more lengthy response. So if you have any questions, Ole, I see that you've joined us. If you have any questions, then simply tell me that you've emailed me something, and I'll check that out. I will be not again away for a few more days, but we'll be back in my home base Monday, and not that it makes a difference, but at least I have access to all my materials. All right. If there isn't anything, I wish you a very pleasant day and a very pleasant week. And I look forward to meeting with you again next week. Okay?
Thank you, Professor.
Okay. Bye-bye now.